keeps together strong.
Hello.
Okay, Kiefer, let's get this started.
How are you?
All right, first up is going to be Mike DeWald with KSRO in San Francisco. Mike.
Great. Hello, Mike.
Hi, thanks for doing this.
Thank you for taking the time.
Sure. Kind of a general question for you. How do you compare kind of the artistic experience of acting and directing to writing and performing on stage? I mean, are there any similarities between the two worlds, or are they very different animals?
I thought they were going to be, I thought I was going to be able to use 30 years of working as an actor. Certainly that was going to help me on stage, and I was wrong. The one part of that component that I left out in my thinking about it was that for 30 years I've been able to work as an actor and have a character, and when I go on stage with the music, the songs are very personal in their mind, and I don't have, it's kind of, I leave myself in a more open position than I think maybe I ever had before. So they ended up being incredibly different for me. And so it's almost impossible to compare them, except for the fact that in both circumstances, I'm telling stories, and that seems to be the common thread of the thing that I enjoy the most.
Okay, next
Hello.
up is Eric Walden with the Salt Lake Tribune. You're playing there May 9th at Urban Lounge. Eric.
Hi, Keefer. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So it's one thing to scratch an itch by recording and releasing an album. It's another to actually go and tour behind it. Given that you presumably don't need to sell any merch to ensure your livelihood, I was wondering why concern yourself with going out and playing in front of a couple hundred people every night.
It ended up being, we played almost 75 to 85 dates last year. It became kind of one of the most exciting things that I've ever had an opportunity to do. Kind of as I intimated earlier, it required me opening up in a way that I haven't done before. And by that I just mean in the context of explaining where I was when I wrote this song, and that we might have this, between the audience and I, we might have this one thing in common. And I just enjoyed it immensely. Certainly at the beginning, I doubt that anything probably ever made me that scared in the first few shows that we would play. And by that I mean maybe 20. And then for a variety of reasons, things happen, and it ended up becoming a whole new way for me to kind of partake in telling a story about something, and as I said earlier, that really is the driving force of what excites me about working as an actor as well. And it's just, there was something about the excitement and the newness of it, and it really has, in many ways, it's transferred over to the acting as well. I think I approached Designated Survival with maybe a more open sensibility than I have before, and so it's kind of re-energized me in a creative way. So I guess that's a long answer for that. Sorry.
Thank you.
Next up, Miriam with the Chicago Sun-Times. You'll be playing there May 21st. Miriam.
Great. Hello.
Hey, Kiefer, how are you? It's good to talk to you again. Last time we spoke, you were just about to kick off your very first music tour. So I guess my question would be at this point, it's kind of twofold. What did you learn about yourself from being on the road, and also about music from being on the road?
I think primarily the biggest thing is that I won't quit. As I said earlier, the first few shows, it was not easy. It was I had to force myself to get out there and do it. And you know, I think I was very nervous and kind of did not know what the outcome was going to be. But I pushed through it, and I think that's something that I have done all my life. Is, you know, you just kind of push through it, and then I started to, you know, then I got to a place where I actually really, really enjoyed it, and I can't say enough about the audiences that we got to play to over the last year and a half. But there was a thing that I started to really feed off of, and you know, so that it's. But I guess the thing that I learned about myself the most would be that, you know, if I task myself with something, I'm gonna follow it through for better or worse.
Great. Thanks so much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Next up, Donna with California Rocker. You're playing the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco, May 4th. Donna.
Great. Hi, Donna.
Hi there, Kiefer. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
So I'm sort of wondering how you feel about playing a big stage like Stagecoach and a Great American Music Hall in San Francisco, being that I'm a California-based publication. You know, how do you feel about playing to the people of California, and how has your reception been by these audiences here?
Well, this was the first place, I mean, I live in Los Angeles, and we would kind of play everywhere but Los Angeles, but we would play south of here. You know, so this is where, for me, it started. And I can't say how generous and kind the audiences have been and supportive. So, you know, this will always have a special place for me. With regards to playing something like Stagecoach, you know, we were just so kind of thrilled to have been invited. I mean, when you take a look at the acts that are on that list, to have been given an opportunity to play for an hour or 45 minutes, to us is just a real privilege. And so for that kind of a thing, we're just grateful for the opportunity to play something like, you know, a little bar or the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco. That gets to be a really, really special thing, because those are much more intimate experiences. And the thing that I've enjoyed about our shows the most is at the end of the show, whatever preconceived notions that I might have had about an audience, or whatever preconceived notions they might have had about me, hopefully at the end of it, we start to realize that we've got probably a lot more in common than you would normally think. And I think that shared experience has been amazing, certainly from my perspective. And again, that started here in California, and we'll always be grateful for that.
Thank you very much. It's very nice.
Thank you.
Next up, Lee Smith with Insight Atlanta. You're playing there May 17th at Terminal West. Lee?
Hey, Kiefer. It's great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. How are you?
I'm great. I got to tell you, I love the album. It's really good.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
But I've got a question about the songwriting process. Now, I've read that you said it was sort of a personal thing. You know, a lot of our favorite songwriters assume a character, but in this, it sounds like you weren't assuming a character. You were actually being you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I spent a lifetime kind of playing characters, and I think when I started writing, and when I started writing a lot more, the things that I would draw on were kind of the personal experiences that I had gone through, and like anybody else, they were very kind of general things: loss of love, finding love. I've unfortunately, over the course of my life, have lost some really good friends way too early, so I would write about that. And it just became the easiest thing. I think the only song on the record that is really not a personal story would be a song called Shirley Jean, which is about a man's last night before his execution in prison. But everything else, it was just what was in front of me, and maybe I wasn't or am not evolved enough as a writer to spend a lot of time trying to craft or create a story when I never kept a diary in my life. This ended up maybe becoming that for me.
Right. So is it a little scary opening up that diary for everybody to see and hear?
Well, that was the thing that I wasn't expecting. You know, I figured that 30 years of being on stage or in front of the camera, I would be able to go out and figure out how to perform, and that would be that. But all of a sudden, when I would start to say, you know, I was in this place when I wrote this song, and this is what I was writing about, I realized I was talking about my life, and so I put myself in a position to open up maybe in a way that maybe I wasn't prepared for, and that took a little bit of an adjustment. And I have to say, when I finally did, and I just came clean with it, and this song is about this, and da-da-da-da-da, it was a really freeing experience for me. And I think that's part of why I enjoy doing this as much as I do.
That's great. See you in Atlanta.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
All right.
Next up, Ryan Miller in Chicago. Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing good. One of the things I most like about the album is how no one song sounds the same, as you have steel guitar, electric riffs, different tempo ballads, and even blues like All She Wrote. With all that diversity in there, which artist most influenced your music, would you say?
Well, gosh, I'd have to go all the way back. I mean, Elton John and Bernie Taupin wrote such kind of, even though the productions of a lot of their music was really big, the lyrics and the songs were really intimate. That's what I was starting to listen to when I was 8 or 9 years old. Tom Petty is probably my favorite American artist. I don't think he's ever written a bad lyric, and so, and if you listen to his records, there's an incredible amount of diversity where he can go from a real rock song to kind of a country feeling song to very bluesy stuff as well. I would never ever put myself in the same sentence as those people, but they're certainly people that I've listened to over the years that have really, really inspired me. But the list is so long. You know, the band, just sonically, the band is something that if we could ever get a sound that was that kind of warm and sophisticated, would be something I would give my hind teeth for. So it really crosses a wide spectrum. When I think of writing, I think of Merle Haggard and Johnny Cash. They told really linear stories. I think that's my real attraction to country music. So those are just some samples of people that have certainly affected me as a listener.
I appreciate that. I could hear all that spectrum of diversity in the album. Thank you for that.
Oh, well, thank you very much, man. Thank you.
Next up, Ingeborg Harms with an outlet in Germany. Ingeborg, if you want to go ahead.
Hello. Guten Tag.
Guten Tag, Mr. Sutherland. I was wondering what Jack Bauer would do in my place, having an interview with just one question, and I think the equivalent for a journalist would be the deactivating of a ticking bomb in 10 seconds. And so the question would be, will you grant me a longer interview in Berlin?
It would be my pleasure. It would be my pleasure. And we're so excited about coming to play in Germany. It's something that I've wanted to do from the very beginning of this. And so we're really looking forward to it in June.
Yeah. Now, let me ask my real question.
Okay.
Music is very intensive and emotionally demanding, and you get an immediate response of the public, of the audience. That's, of course, also what we get from a series like 24. But how is it for you, having to unwind from shooting to shooting and from shooting day to shooting day? How did you cover how did you bridge the moments in between very great intensity in front of the camera and stepping down into real life?
Well, I think for me, certainly during the course of doing 24, you know, you're right. It was a very intense schedule, and I did it for 9 years. And you end up living in your trailer for the most part. You're there for 16, 17 hours a day, and in all fairness, I would play guitar a lot, and I would write songs. And I found it to be incredibly relaxing to me. You know, some people build models, but there's something about starting something and figuring it out and coming to a conclusion. And for me, not only was it satisfying in that regard, but it was also quite cathartic because I was writing about things from my own personal life that obviously certain things I hadn't resolved or dealt with and put in its proper place. And I think songwriting for me helped me with that a great deal.
Okay, next up is Diane Webb with yesterday's news. Diane.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? So,
good, how are you?
I'm great. I'd like to say that I've really connected with your album. I believe it's so raw and gritty, but so genuine that the general listener can really connect with your music. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
So my question is, you're coming to Seattle here on the 7th, and so we're really excited to see you. Our show's already sold out. But along with that, a lot of people have followed your career, and so you've lived a very public life. Did you have any pause at all when you started to have the conversation of recording your album? Because I know it's a very vulnerable process, and listening through your album, listening to the lyrics, and really getting the deepness of, say, the song My Best Friend, did it make you kind of wonder if you'd get a lot of criticism from the media or the public by sharing that deeper part of yourself?
Well, I certainly was aware of it, and I'm certainly aware of the stigma of an actor doing music. I probably, you know, as you kind of laid out that question, I probably wasn't smart enough to realize the potential position that I was putting myself in until I actually got on stage. And again, it was that moment where I actually had to, you know, where I felt I had to explain where I was when I wrote this song and why I wrote it. And I realized, regardless of the fact that you might think I've lived a public life, I have, but I've always managed to know that a lot of stuff that is said is just simply not true, and I would know the truth kind of for myself. When you start actually explaining the truth in the middle of a concert, I felt really exposed, and I remember it making me feel kind of very guarded and uncomfortable at first. And I think it was a show in Ann Arbor, and I think maybe because the audience was sitting down and it was maybe a little more quiet, I just ended up having more of a conversation with this audience in the middle of these songs. And it was one of the most freeing, kind of enjoyable experiences I've ever had. And so it was kind of having to push to a point, and then you either kind of break through that barrier or you don't. And lucky for me, I did. And I have to be honest, you know, you can never control what the press is going to say or not say. But I do think you have some control in the context of a show, and to the people that have chosen to come to that show. And that experience for me is one of the kind of, I would have to be honest, it has been one of the great experiences of my life. And to be able to tell stories in 3 to 4 minutes through a song and kind of point out that, you know, if there's anybody in the audience that has lost someone that they love way too early in their life, this is a shared experience. If there is anything, you know, if you had your heart broken in this fashion at a really young age, then we have that in common. And so this idea that we can leave a show at the end of the night, and whatever preconceived notions we had about each other at the beginning, a lot of that's been broken down. That for me has just been a really special experience.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, Sel Selden with Trailblazer Magazine. Sel.
Hey, Kiefer, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Great, thank you. I'm a freelancer and have done a monthly column for years called On the Road for a major magazine which features celebrities like Darius Rucker, Eddie Montgomery, Dolly Parton, and their tour buses. Now that you've become a touring fool, what kind of tour bus do you travel in? And would you be willing to be interviewed about your life on the road?
Sure. I mean, I have a pre-host. Her name is Dora, and you know, like I said to the young lady from Germany, you know, when I was doing 24, I spent my life in this trailer, and so when I started Designated Survivor and we started touring, I realized that it would make sense for me to actually get a bus just because it's so much nicer, and so I use it as my trailer for Designated Survivor, and then that allows us through the making of Designated Survivor, which was almost 9 months, we still managed to get in 2 dates a week because we could go out on the weekend and we could play in the Midwest because we were shooting in Toronto. So I spent a great deal of time on the bus, and I'd love to talk to you about it.
That sounds great. Thanks so much. We'll be in touch.
Okay. Cheers. Hello? Hello?
I'm still here. It's with California Rocker.
Oh, hi.
Where'd everybody go?
I'm still here too.
There have been more than one night where I have said that line just like that. Where did everybody go?
Can I jump in since I'm the country radio guy here, Kiefer, Joe Ed Formicola? You got interested in country music in the early 90s. What was the attraction?
I was rodeoing. I got into calf roping and team roping, and I would tour kind of California, Arizona, New Mexico, West Texas, and sometimes into Utah. And I would travel with two cowboys, a guy named John English and another guy named Steve Gilson. And we would haul all our horses together from kind of one rope into another. And country music was on the radio, and that was kind of really my first exposure to it. In kind of a heavy way, where we're driving sometimes 6, 7, 8 hours a day. So I was listening to it all the time, and that's when I started to really get into Merle Haggard, Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson. And the reason why those people stood out to me was just their songwriting. They told linear stories that were really, I'm not going to use, they weren't plain, but there was a simplicity to them, and they were so direct. And it just became a kind of style of writing that I really, really respected and really understood, and I found great kind of symbiosis with those songs and connected to them. And that was in the 90s, and it was through rodeoing, and it's just been something that I just really loved. And again, I really believe very strongly that one of the great things about a great novel or a great film or a great song is that whatever you might be going through in your life, you realize you're not the only one going through it, and there's some real comfort in that. Country music, from a lyrical point, has been my strongest kind of identity towards that than any other genre.
Next up is Stephanie with FoxNews.com. Stephanie?
Hi,
Hello.
Kiefer. How are you?
Great, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so thrilled to talk to you today.
Well, thank you.
So I understand that this album is a personal one for you, and I'm curious, what one memory from your past, good or bad, that you wanted to explore musically for this album, and what inspired you to be so open and honest about it?
Well, I think at the heart of it was that the songs that I was writing for myself, and then I ultimately played them for a couple people, and those people were the ones that really said, no, you should record that song and you should actually try and put it out. And that was its own kind of discussion down the line. But when I sat down to write the songs, I think there was a lot of stuff kind of in my 40s that I was trying to come to terms with, and stuff that I'd kind of maybe not dealt with from even my early 20s. There's one song on the record called Calling Out Your Name, which was, about a personal breakup. And I think it's probably the first time in my life that my heart really got broken. And over time, you realize that how young you were and how young the other person was. And I guess I was just trying to put it to rest, and it ended up coming out in that song. And I realized, looking back, that there were so many factors. But going to write that song actually forced me to look at it in a different way and kind of put that experience to bed, if you will. And I think all of the songs were kind of poignant moments in my life where I had to figure out something in order to move forward. And writing these songs was very helpful for me for that.
Great. Thank
Next
you.
up is Janine with Country Notes.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, Kiefer.
How are you?
Hello. Good. How are you? Thank you
Hi.
for doing this.
Thank you.
And much like everybody else who's been on the call, I absolutely love the album. I was lucky to see you in
thank you,
New Jersey last year.
Oh, great.
It was amazing. I
you.
have a question. As you've been talking about the album being very personal and all your past relationships and friendships and people you've lost, and you've talked about all these experiences now on the road, seeing people react to your music and such like that. Have you been able to write any new material, and where have you been?
Yeah, I mean, we're quite well into the second record. I don't know if my family's going to like this very much, but it's so whenever I kind of stop writing about kind of maybe a personal experience of mine, I started writing about personal experiences of my family. So I don't know how appreciative they're going to be of that. But it's I've got about 5 or 6 songs that we kind of got bed tracks for the record. And then we'll finish this tour, then I'll go back to Toronto and start Designated Survivor again. And then we'll, in Toronto and maybe Moline, Illinois, we'll start finishing up the second record, and hopefully that will be ready by the spring of next year.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next month in New York City.
Oh, can't wait. Awesome.
Awesome.
Hey, man.
Next up is Ronnie Mason with Matt Brothers Media. Ronnie.
Yeah, so first off, just wanted to say I personally I haven't been a huge country fan since, I was a kid, back in the days of Merle Haggard and the Oak Ridge Boys, but your album it's an amazing album. I just wanted to say that. And Not Enough Whiskey, that should probably be a personal anthem for me. So
oh, bless your heart, brother. Cheers, man.
My question was, going from acting to doing the album, you're now on tour. Do you feel, now that you have the audience in front of you compared to before where they were just watching you on your films or TV and they're not right there with you, do you feel that you have a much more personal connection with your audience now than probably you did before?
Yeah, and I think that goes both ways. Again, to be able to, to be able to put a face to the numbers of people that watch 24 and to be able to hear from them how much they might have liked that kind of experience is one thing. They also project a kind of idea of what they think I might be like, and the truth is I'm not Jack Bauer, so I think on some level that might be disappointing to them, but over the hour and a half that we play, we get to really, I feel we have a real conversation. And I think at the end of it, I think it's a much more honest relationship. And so to be able to do this, has been really special. Yeah. But I think that hopefully at the end of the show, whatever that connection was before, is much stronger and much more honest, than it was before the show.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, next up we have just a few more on the line who would like to ask a question, so we'll try to do this as efficient as possible. Jason Price with Icon versus Icon. Jason? Okay, we'll go ahead and go to Derek Oswald with Allswire. Derek?
Hey, this is Jason. Sorry.
Oh, Jason.
Hey, Jason, how are you?
Can you go first? Good.
quick question. Obviously, music's been a part of your life since you were young. How do you feel you've most evolved through the years? Are there clear milestones that stand out to you?
Well, it's different. I mean, my evolution as a listener would be that just I listen to a great many more genres of music than I did. And when I come home at the end of the day, or if I'm making dinner, it's not on. I'm not going to play the same records over and over, which I certainly would have done in my 20s. So as a listener, I've evolved a great deal. As a writer and as a player, that's still a very kind of new and fresh thing. I'm excited about the fact that I feel I've got so much to learn. And I think one of the interesting things for me, you know, after 70 some odd films and 216 hours of 24 and other series as well, you know, I feel I've accumulated a lot of information that I feel very confident and kind of, I don't want to say settled as an actor, but I've seen a lot, and I really do have a process as an actor that I think is quite evolved. Musically, everything feels really fresh and new and exciting because it is, in fact, really new. So I think with regards to music, as a listener, I think I'm an evolved listener. But I think as a writer and as a performer, I feel like I've just gotten started and I have so much to learn. That's actually a really exciting prospect for me.
Awesome. Thanks, and we can't wait to see where the journey takes you. Take care.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for that.
Okay, now let's go to Derek Oswald with Altwire. Derek?
Sorry, I wasn't unmuting there for a second. How you doing, Kiefer?
Hey, good, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. One question I had, to kind of tie all your work together, now that you made that scary leap from renowned actor to musician, do you feel like that perhaps opened the door to you maybe composing a song for a movie, maybe even for one that you may be directing or starring in?
I probably wouldn't do it for something that I was involved in, but oddly enough, I mean, the whole making of a record, I didn't sit down and say, oh my gosh, I want to make a record. I had written some songs that I really liked, and I took them to my friend Jude Cole, and all I wanted to do was record them and see if another artist would be interested in doing them. And at that point, certainly if there was a film or a show that would have liked to have done that, I would have been thrilled by that. So I would always be open to something like that.
Thank you so much, Kiefer.
Thank you.
Next up, Brett Callwood with Westward. Brett?
Hi, Keith. How you doing, sir?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for doing this today. It's a real pleasure.
Thank you.
My question is, oftentimes when people are taking the dual career route that you're taking right now, from either direction, it seems like it's because one of them is slowing down. Well, that certainly isn't the case for you. You're on top of your game and you're all over our screens. So just from a sheer workload perspective, how are you achieving that balance? Why do you not want to take any weekends off?
Well, I mean, as I said earlier, the experience of playing the live shows and the touring ended up being the thing I loved the most. And you have to understand, I really loved writing the record and I really loved making the record. Mm-hmm. But the touring, it kind of woke something up in me. And so if something matters to you, you just figure out a way to do it. You know, I'm sure I've taken a couple of years off of my life because I haven't taken a break. But this is, for right now, this is exactly what I want to be doing. And so you just figure out how to do it. And it's hard to explain, but I feel so lucky to have this opportunity. The last thing I'm going to be able to do is complain about the hours, you know.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay, wrapping this up, we have Jay with Media Central. Jay?
Hey.
Okay, Jay's not on. Jameson Ketchum? Jameson.
Jameson and Ketchum, Idaho. Hello, are you there?
Okay, well, that's it.
Hang on. Can I ask a question? I'm still here.
Oh, Rich,
great.
Go right ahead.
Yes. Hey, Kiefer. It's Rich from the UK here.
Oh, cheers. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. So, you're coming to play some dates in the UK. How are you planning to survive playing Glastonbury in particular, which is renowned for muddy
that kind of a situation. I mean, we're just so honored to have been invited. I mean, when you take a look at the acts that are on that bill, just to have been given the opportunity to play for 45 minutes or an hour, or whatever we get to do, it's just a really real honor. And what's really interesting to me, though, what I'm looking forward to, you know, whether it's in Glasgow or London or are the shows that we've got that are our shows and the audience that is coming to that, to be able to kind of share where these songs came from for me personally, and be able to share that with an audience in an intimate setting like that is something that I'm really, really excited about having the opportunity to do. And London is where I was born, and so for me, I'm very excited to come home and do that.
Have you ever been to Glastonbury, or have any?
I have not. No, I have not. I've just always, you know, every year they make the documentary about the festival, and I've always watched that, but I have never been there myself. No, so this will be a first.
Are you excited about going?
Beyond belief.
I'll give you one.
And probably a little nervous.
Thank you so much for your time today, Kiefer. He has to get to rehearsal, so thank you everyone for calling in. And Kiefer, thank you.
Thank you guys so much. And Scott, thanks for putting this together, and have a great day, everybody. Okay. Take care, man.
Thank you.
Bye.
I love you just the way you are. No, I wouldn't change a thing. And if you'll take me as I am, girl, I'll do anything. I'll do anything.